that's what at least I'm trying to do as much as possible, is just kind of get that word out, making flyers for everything I can. I've even on like dating sites, I've been like, do you want to play hockey? I'm not looking for any lovers, but do you want to play hockey? Come play hockey. So like any way that you can, just try to get the word out, get the word out. Yeah, for me, so I am 30 years old. I live in New York City, currently in Brooklyn. I identify as queer. I live with my girlfriend and my cat, and I'm a designer. So that's kind of what I'm passionate about: design and ice hockey mixed together.
Cool. What kind of design do you do?
So I do a lot of product design. So whether it be industrial or digital products.
Very cool. Very cool. How did you get into hockey?
Oof, how didn't I get into hockey? So I was lucky enough to kind of grow up in a very mediaized version of hockey, where I grew up outside of Philly. So at that point, the Flyers were Legion of Doom. It was an amazing hockey team to grow up and watch with. And then grew up just playing street hockey. And then, of course, I got super lucky that even like the Mighty Ducks films were just such an influential type of media that I was like, I'm obsessed with this. I want to do this, want to play. And then got super lucky that like the the 98 gold women's hockey team for America, they just crushed it, and I super got into it. And I was like, I need to play this sport. I don't know how I can play this sport, but I got to figure it out. And then luckily my little brother is obsessed with me, and he was like, well, I want to do whatever she wants to do. So because he said I want to play hockey, my dad was like, all right, he can play, but he wasn't going to let me play it. And my mom was like, oh, no, that's not going to happen. There's no way you're going to let Buddy, my brother, play without Melanie playing. That's not going to happen. So from there, that's how it all got started.
We love a feminist mother.
I know. It's like, thank you, Jules.
What do you love about hockey?
What do I love about it? It's so kind of cliche, but the team aspect, just I love playing with a group of people that I can laugh with, that we can, have a really serious shift where we're playing super hard, but then by the end of it, we're all cracking up and laughing. I love the quickness of it. I just love the ease of it. And it's just something that I can just melt away in.
I like it. I like it. So a little bit of the community building, a little bit
Absolutely.
of just taking your mind out of everything, and just the speed and the intensity.
Yeah.
That's great. So question I have that we've been asking everyone is, how could hockey be better for you?
Better for me. I think it kind of draws back to community and kind of community outreach. Especially for me, just because searching, when I first moved to New York City specifically, I stopped playing hockey once I was in high school, just because at that point I was like, you either play in college or just you're done. And I wanted to be a designer, and I was like, you know what, I don't think there are many design schools that have hockey teams, so I'm gonna have to pick either or.
I don't think there's any.
Yeah, there's none. I think RISD like might have like a little like playful team or something, and I was like, that could be cool. But essentially I was like, I'm moving to New York, like I don't think there's hockey here. Any hockey here, maybe in Queens, but I wasn't driving in New York at 18. That wasn't gonna happen.
No.
So I didn't even know that it existed here. And I didn't even until I was actually at Cubbyhole, a lesbian bar, in New York, and I actually ran into a couple of ladies around the jukebox, and someone was wearing a Rangers hat. So I started chirping them, because naturally, being a Flyers fan, I was like, all right, you're wearing a Rangers thing, I need to poke fun at you. So I was like, oh, the Rangers are terrible, blah 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 blah. And she was like, oh, well, do you even play hockey? And I was like, I do, in fact. I haven't played in years. And she was like, oh, well, actually, we have this team, do you want to come play with us, and yada yada yada. So essentially, like, that quick community conversation was something that got me back into it. Otherwise, I don't know how long it would have taken me to really recognize that there are teams here and teams that I'm really interested in. So I would say just kind of community outreach, and just a lot more of these kinds of things, and a lot more of just group meetings, like group gangs. Do you want to go to a game? Should we have a collective group? So just, I guess, yeah, community outreach that's how that I think hockey could be better for me.
That makes a lot of sense, because unless you're immersed either in the recreational hockey world, or about, if you want to play in queer leagues, about them, or you've actively sought them out, it's kind of tough to find.
Absolutely. And even with the queer league, that was a lot of extensive research, where I ended up actually with the women's team, ended up playing in one of the Chelsea challenges, and I was like, I didn't know that this was an extra thing. So it's like now I have like these two communities that I'm a part of. Now I'm so fully immersed in them. This is amazing. So that's what at least I'm trying to do as much as possible, is just kind of get that word out, making flyers for everything I can. I've even on like dating sites, I've been like, do you want to play hockey? I'm not looking for any lovers, but do you want to play hockey? Come play hockey. So like any way that you can, just try to get the word out, get the word out.
So you're basically making Philadelphia flyers.
Yes, 100%. That is the best flyers pun I've heard in a hot minute, considering.
That was the cheesiest thing I've ever said, I swear.
But I appreciate it, so it's fine.
What keeps you in hockey?
Just the fun of it. Kind of going back to why I love it is the fun of like the community and the people that I've met out of it. I've met moms that have just started playing because their kids play. I've met people that I used to play when I was 13, and they're like, were you on that one team? And I was like, I was on that one team. She's like, I hated you. And I was like, that's fine, now we're friends. So I think it's, again, kind of that community and the fun just keeps me there.
Do you find there's a distinction between, say, as a fan of professional sport versus being in these communities with people where you're engaging in, like, you know, like hockey Twitter versus real life engagement? Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
How can like professional sport be better for fans at the same time? Because you're a player, but you're also a fan. So there's, you know, the two aspects of it, and be interested to see if there's similarities or differences or what could be better on either side.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the people that are fans, there's almost like, I don't want to say there's a fear of trying to get into it, but kind of like not knowing how, if I want to play or if I want to be kind of like see the ice at a different perspective, how I even attempt to do that. A lot of people that have reached out to me interested about my women's league have been like, I've never skated before. I've watched for 15 years. I've never skated. I've never touched a hockey stick. Don't know if I'm a lefty or a righty, but I would love to just even like come watch some of your games first and then maybe learn how to skate and like, what can I do?
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I think, so I think there's a difference between that. It's just, if you actually are able to play or you learn to play, you get to see hockey at just a completely different perspective that really allows you to just, it's not that there's pros or cons really, it's just, I think seeing it just makes it more real, and maybe you become more passionate, and maybe you're going to be screaming shoot in the stands a little less. But then there's also people that are like, I have no interest ever to shoot a puck ever, but I'm diehard passionate and I will make every single one of your games and bring a beer and let's go. So, but I think it's just kind of having those open conversations to get people out.
And what about as a queer person?
For that, same thing kind of applies. I mean, it's tough, especially on the hockey Twitter. I will say, like, I personally, whenever, I will say specifically for the Flyers, if they post something about Pride, I usually like hold my breath when I'm starting to, I'm like, all right, here's the post. Like, let me start going through the comments. Like, what do we have here? And I'm that person that I'll always kind of like type back, like, well, what do you mean by this? And like, I kind of like, I happy troll because I'm like, I'm going to stand up for the people that are also seeing this, because I know it affects people, and I know I was not out, or I was scared of hockey and I saw those things. Me even being a hockey player, it makes me kind of be like, oh, this, it's just not a friendly environment. So with that, I mean, it's just doing more. It's those teams still posting those things. It's those teams. I think the Capitals do a really good job, but like responding to the negative hate with more positive things, with more exposure to queer players. Some people don't even know why they have Pride Night. They don't understand. They're like, what does this have to do with hockey? And I'm like, there's queer hockey players, there's queer fans, there's people that love this sport. It 100% has to do with hockey. Like, what are you talking about? So I think there's that a bit of educational aspect that is missing, and I think teams could do a really better job of bringing that into any type of Pride or you can play kind of situation.
Well, they should probably do it for their organizations and their players and the fandoms. And,
absolutely.
And use their influence in minor hockey. That's the end of my rant. And they also shouldn't partner with Chick-fil-A.
That is a huge thing. That is a huge,
I have a bone to
Wells
pick.
Fargo.
Yeah, I have a bone to pick with your Flyers about that.
Oh, it's the most confusing thing on the planet.
I know.
Well, that and like any of their pride stuff, I'm like, guys, you're just missing the mark here. You're really just, so that's very frustrating. There's a lot of contradictions in a lot of the things they do.
Yeah, and I think it comes from, like you said, education and humanizing issues and educating them on how to be better. So, what keeps you in hockey?
Keeps me in hockey. So yeah, so back
On all three levels, because
on
you
all
know,
three
as
levels.
a queer person, as a player, and also as a fan.
I love the competitive nature of it. I
Mm-hmm.
love a great game. Nothing could make me happier than just I could have the worst day ever, and I either play in, I either watch, or just hear about an amazing game, and that will just boost my my levels of happiness to the roof. So that competitive play, and just because it's just fun, that like that kind of competition and that kind of exciting of a game, that fun aspect that again kind of like blocks out any negativity that I've had in my head
Mm-hmm.
that day and just brings me right in that moment to that fun. That keeps me there.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What gives you hope for queer people in hockey?
I will say now, this is loaded. This is so loaded because it's just,
Yeah,
I know.
take
It's like
like
it goes, yeah. It's like
you
I
can
need like a
have,
second to think.
yeah, take your time.
Um,
You can have it can be multi-layered, it can be multi-answered, you know what I mean?
I mean, because when I first think about it, what starts to give me hope is that like finding leagues, um, not even leagues, but also like fandoms that are welcoming to queer people or based towards queer people, like that completely changed my perspective as just a queer person. Like when I first joined our queer league, I had not played in 5 or 6 years. I was going through like a terrible breakup. I was very lost. I was alone in New York. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but like I know I was like, what's the one thing right now that like is like a comforting thing in me, and like who do I want to be near? And I was like, I'd really like to be with queers and fellow people in my community, and I would really like to do the thing I love. So when I found the New York Gay Hockey Association, I was like, this is a prize right now. This is like exactly what I needed. This is therapy on ice and
Mhm.
100% like just a hug that I desperately was owed for myself.
Mhm.
So I think the hope for me is that seeing these organizations exist and also staying, because I will say that staying, and I say why I say staying or remaining is because especially with women's leagues, I will say specifically, I kind of compare them also to lesbian bars, where now in New York, there used to be a ton of lesbian bars.
Mhm.
And because of price, because of whatever you have, they're disappearing. And with women's leagues, it's the same thing. I've seen 4 to 8 women's leagues exist in New York City and then completely disappear without a trace. And no one trying to foster those. So being able to see these communities and these leagues exist and them keep popping up and people being interested and people asking, what can I do to help? What can I do to raise awareness? Do we want to do like a fundraiser? What's the situation? That gives me hope that they're going to remain and not just be fleeting.
Do you know why the women's leagues off and the lesbian bars, like why they're not remaining?
It is a mystery. I think when it comes down to it, it's financing and people not necessarily caring. And I know that sounds very like bleak in a way, but I will say that we definitely have to fight to just get spaces, to make
Mhm.
space. Especially in the hockey world, it's like at one point it's like, okay, we can finally get some ice time, but it's going to be an 11:30 p.m. slot.
Oh,
I
the
will say for
worst.
some women, they don't. It's a different perspective where it's like I feel like with any other lady, like I'll leave 11:30 p.m. fine. I don't feel unsafe leaving. And we
Oh
had a lot of
yeah.
issues being like we feel a little bit unsafe leaving at 1 in the morning, riding the subway by ourselves,
Yes.
and trying to communicate that like can we fight for another ice time, and it's like, well, that's a travel league's ice time, they pay so much more than you, this is technically more important. So I think honestly when it comes down to it, it's just finances, it's who's going to make us the most money.
And safe spaces and
Exactly.
being, you know, like beyond quality, being like equity and recognizing
Hmm.
the importance of giving women spaces that are safe, even going to and from.
Yep, exactly.
That's
And that was something I didn't even think about until we were given that slot, and I was like, oh, this, yeah, that's just not going to work. And that's something that they were even like, what do you mean they're not going to feel, you know, safe leaving
yeah.
the rink? And it's a completely different perspective for some rinks that just haven't had women's teams, or they had them years before, and just people were just happy to get the ice, so they're like, whatever, we'll take the ice. What it is, we'll see what happens. But yeah, we've definitely had a fight for like a nice 7 p.m. time in order for people to be able to leave work, come and leave, and feel safe and happy.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Wow, I never had that perspective before, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. Is there anything you want to add?
Oh, I love hockey. Yeah, I mean, if anyone, I'm gonna pitch the women's league in New York for a second, but just so you guys have that information, we're a great league. Essentially, what we do is that it's any type of player. If you have never skated before, if you have skated D1, if you're someone like me that didn't skate for like 10 years, and I was like, I really miss the game again, we all get together and we all play. And like, what I think the best situation with that league is that I know sometimes with mixed field sets, people can hesitate. They're like, I don't know if they're going to be too good, or you'll have some more elite players that are like, I don't want it to be too slow. But I think we're really fortunate to have such a good group and really great just mindset hockey players that the pace is still consistent. You can have a D1 player adapt their play to someone that's new and work with them, and just everyone smiles and everyone's giggling around. So it's one of the more rewarding things I've ever have done my entire life, being with this group and playing with everyone. It's really amazing. So it's New York City Women's Hockey. Pretty simple. We're Googleable. We have an Instagram. And yeah, we have a winter league, a summer league, and then we do a lot of fundraising games. So yeah.
And I think people need to realize, even if you haven't played before, there's a space for you.
Absolutely.
I even found doing this project, people would DM me and be like, well, I've never played, so I don't know what I could add to the conversation. I'm like, no, get out of that mindset.
Exactly.
You're a part of the culture. So embrace it and be celebrated. And
exactly.
Your voice is valuable. What you have to say is valuable. Your perspective is unique and valuable. And also, don't be shy to, if you want to take up the game, to take it up.
Exactly.
And I think, to the same point, people have that fear, and it's like,
which I completely get. I think it can be, especially with the things like when you bring up Twitter, like you see the hockey fandom, and you see the kind of like the ugly side of kind of hockey critiquing, and whether you're a queer person or not, it can be really intimidating. It could be something like, is this actually like a healthy environment that I want to put myself in? So I think, if anything, that what I try to promote is that this is a healthy hockey environment that's going to benefit you rather than hurt you.
That's amazing. That's so good. Well, Melanie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your efforts in New York to keep the game alive and grow it. You're growing the game. That's so cool. And on a number of fronts, and keep putting up your Philadelphia Flyers and get more people out, even if they're, well, maybe not if they're Islander fans, but if they're Rangers fans.
Yeah, no, if they're Rangers fans. That's amazing. No, and thank you so much for doing this. I love everything about it. And again, you're doing the same exact thing, and I extremely appreciate it. It's amazing to see.
Thank you. All right, I'm just gonna